why are you famous for this bread and why do you love it so much?
When I moved to Copenhagen, I didn't really understand any of this bread. I had no idea
It's very
what
Scandinavian,
it was about.
isn't it?
Scandinavian bread. Us being Westerners or like, you know, Australian, English, American, when you vision bread, it's in your head, you have this white loaf of bread. If you speak to someone from Denmark or Sweden and you talk about bread, this is the bread that's in your head. Renee was like, look, the way you're gonna get the Danes is through the rye bread. You need to make a great rye bread.
Hello everybody, today is incredibly exciting because I am joined by Richard Hart. Yes, the Richard Hart whose Copenhagen bakery has people lining up around the block for his legendary sourdough. Now, I know what you're thinking. Sure, Andy, a professional baker with specialist equipment can make amazing bread, but what about me at home? Well, that's exactly why Richard's here joining me today. He's going to show us how to adapt his world-class techniques to work in a home kitchen. It's about understanding some fundamental principles that anyone can learn. Richard's going to share his professional insights on reading the dough's texture and developing what he calls the dough tuition. Is that right?
Intuition.
Dough intuition. These subtle cues take the bread from good to extraordinary. Let's get stuck in, Richard. Thank you so much for joining us, mate, and thank you for coming.
Oh, thanks for having me here. I'm super happy.
What bread are we going to make today, mate?
We are going to start with a rye bread from my book.
This fantastic book here.
I think rye is the gateway into making sourdough. It teaches you how to proof, how to manage your sourdough, your starter, I mean by that. It teaches you literally like how things rise and how to bake, and from there you can progress. So if you're a beginner, this is the way in.
Amazing, let's get stuck in.
So like my first couple of days, we had a test bakery in the Noma building area. It was in a greenhouse, and basically they took me in to taste all these things, and they'd made a miso from rye bread. Obviously that made to me so much sense to put it into the bread. Yeah. So like we put this rye miso into the rye bread, and it just made it sing. Yeah, amazing. It was, the umami was incredible.
So miso, it's a fascinating ingredient, like obviously Japanese by nature and usually made with soya beans, but this is a barley miso, which you can get in Asian supermarkets now. But the team at Noma have made miso from a lot of stuff, haven't they?
Yeah, so the rye bread one, and then peas and different ones, and but for the book, like obviously we can't get rye bread miso from Noma, so any miso will do. Yeah, it would work the same. Like you're looking for just a little bit of umami bomb.
So we can't make sourdough without starter, and you famously, I saw on your podcast or someone's podcast the other day, you kind of debunked, I think, a lot of myths about this stuff.
Yeah, I might have upset a couple of people, but like I'm sorry if I did, you know, like, but the truth. My idea of sourdough is that this is fermented flour and water. You take flour, you add water, you keep it warm. The yeast and bacteria live happily inside this mixture of flour and water. So the truth is, it doesn't really matter if you've got 100-year-old sourdough or not, because you could just chuck it out and start again. You know, like it literally is fermented flour and water.
And how many days, realistically, if you start from just flour and water before you have something that's worthy to make bread with?
Yeah, so this one's like very lovely, really alive. And I think within a week you have this. Within 1 to 2 days, you start seeing the signs of life, which is all these bubbles and stuff. But like to get it really, be able to use it in a loaf of bread, it should be like rising and falling. And I would say after a week of constant love and feeding, you have a very nice sourdough. And you know, as the weeks go by, it might mature slightly, but like all it needs is regular feeding, you know. I would say, like, you know, a lot of people talk about chucking it in the fridge. Hey, can I just chuck it in my fridge and not bother feeding it? That's actually the wrong thing to do.
Right.
Yeah, that doesn't really work. You should not chuck it in your fridge and not feed it. Imagine like chucking your animal in the fridge and not feeding it. It's going to be really pissed off with you.
So I'm going away for a weekend. What do I do?
Actually, this is not in my book, so this is a new thing you're getting here. Yeah, so basically if you're going away for a week or even 2 weeks, you would take a spoonful of really active sourdough and mix it into a lot of flour. Okay. Till it becomes almost flour again. Like you take that spoonful and you turn it into flour. That will make it go dormant. It will really stop it because there's not enough liquid in it for it to like keep going alive. So it just slows it down to nothing. And then you could put it in your fridge. But if you put it in your fridge in this format, it will get very acid and the yeast will really start to dwindle and and so it really throws off the balance. So like drying it out is the way to go.
So a tablespoon of that into like 4 or 5 tablespoons of flour?
Probably more, like maybe 150 grams, 200 grams of flour from a tablespoon until it feels basically like flour again. And then when you come back from your holiday, you can just refresh it with water and the next day it will be back to life. Yeah.
There you go. So tell us how we get our sourdough to this point, mate.
Basically, rye is the best way to start a sourdough because it has a higher enzymatic activity and it will kick in quicker.
Sure.
So I would start with rye flour. I would try and find it from a mill or somewhere, you know, something that's not like been sitting on the shelf for years and years. You want to use kind of fresh-ish rye. So yeah, you would mix equal amounts of rye flour and water, and then like after it, keep it warm somewhere. Like if it gets cold, it won't go anywhere. Natural yeast in a sourdough needs warmth, and if it goes cold, it will just not do anything. Yeah.
And rye is just a different type of grain, isn't it, to a wheat grain?
Yeah. Rye is another grain, and you know it's typically grown. It grows very well in colder, wet climates, which is why Scandinavia is a rye eating area. It's like the ideal conditions for it.
Before we started this filming as well, we were talking about that this loaf is a really well adapted to a gluten-free style loaf. And what was the grain you were telling me about for that?
Okay, so like I was given this challenge from a friend of mine and she was like, look, can you just make something gluten-free? I'm sure you can do it. So basically I took this recipe and I traded out the rye flour because rye is quite low in gluten, but there's still gluten. So if you're celiac, you can't have gluten. It makes you sick. So basically, I traded out this for something called teff, which is an Ethiopian grain. You can definitely find it. And literally, you could make a teff sourdough, the same as a rye sourdough, and then you would just literally trade out teff flour for this, and honestly, it will be incredible.
So you don't have to eat rubbish gluten-free bread anymore.
Don't do it.
Make this with teff flour.
Yeah, don't do it. Yeah.
All right, mate. Should we make some bread?
Yeah. Let's make some bread. So we'll just scale the water to get it correct.
And the importance of using grams in bread is...
Yeah, it's very important actually. Like grams is really accurate. The other measurements like cup measurements and stuff, they're not accurate enough. Like, so it varies too much. So like you should definitely, if you're gonna make bread, have a gram scale. Okay. Yeah, so here, we'll chuck the water into the bowl.
And that goes.
And then the dark beer, we'll scale that and chuck it in.
And if someone doesn't eat alcohol or drink alcohol?
Yeah, I mean, you could just trade it out for a little more water.
Yeah, cool. So it's just the flavour that we're getting from it.
Yeah, it's just giving it a richer flavour. So like, I mean, you could trade it out, but we've got so much flavour coming from other ingredients. I think it would be better with alcohol. Sure. Like it will be richer, but like if you don't have alcohol, you can totally trade it out. So here, we'll chuck that in. So normally when I'm scaling this out, I literally add all the wet ingredients together and then I'll add the dry and then we mix it, it's done. Easy. Yeah, it's pretty easy. I'll add the sourdough now.
So we've got about 188 grams of sourdough. So when you're making these recipes, you're working on ratios, aren't you? And is it challenging taking your ratios from domestic ratios to, from commercial ratios to domestic?
Actually, it's really the same. Working from a baker's percentage can make you scale from 1 loaf to 100 loaves really easily. And baker's percentage, I mean, it's a challenge. It can be a challenging concept, but basically, every ingredient is scaled off the flour, and the flour is always 100% of the recipe. Sure. So once you start learning how to make a recipe, like it actually becomes quite easy. The flour is always 100%, and everything else is a percentage of that.
So a 60% hydration is 100 grams of flour to 60 grams of water.
Yeah, exactly. Simple. Yeah. Okay, so let's carry on adding the wet ingredients.
We've got miso, and this is,
good call. This is barley malt syrup. Barley malt syrup is a incredible ingredient, and it's found in places like in beer supply places. It's delicious. It tastes so good. Like you could literally make your butter and toast and put barley malt syrup on it. I'm a little bit addicted to barley malt, and I love You know what? My favourite beer is London Pride.
Yeah, okay.
London Pride is like one of these beers that I love. Like I drink it, and then after the initial like drink, you get this maltiness in the back of your mouth, in the roof of your mouth. Ever since then, I've been trying to recreate that in a bread, and I haven't managed to nail it yet. But so like when I do, well, yeah. Okay, so barley malt syrup, like I said, is an incredible ingredient. Anywhere where you home brew, this is where you find this ingredient. And the same as this is a barley malt powder. They're both for home brewers. Yeah. Okay, so let's chuck that in.
And if I live in rural Queensland and I don't have a brew store next to me.
Yeah, I mean the internet.
Order online.
Oh yeah, and then also like you could literally switch it out.
Yeah.
You know, if you're at home today and you want to make this right now, you've got honey probably in your cupboard or treacle or some sort of golden syrup or something. The malt powder, I would say maybe coffee or cocoa.
Dark cocoa.
I think coffee would be actually very delicious with the miso and stuff. So.
And just really fine ground beans.
Fine ground, like espresso. Would be perfect. Okay, so I'm just going to chuck in the rest of the ingredients. The reason I'm not cleaning my hand off is because I'm just going to dip it in there in a second. So it doesn't really matter because like literally in a second you're going to be covered in dough. So,
you know, for me, cooking and baking especially, it's very tactile. I always get comments now like, "Oh, why are you not wearing gloves?" I've never worn gloves in a kitchen.
No.
I wash my hands properly.
For sure.
You know,
I mean, I actually think it's more unhygienic to wear gloves because those people don't wash their hands enough. You know, like
you feel like you got a barrier.
I'm 100% agree with you. It drives me crazy this glove wearing culture. Yeah. No. Flax seeds.
Great flavour in flax seeds.
They're called flax seeds in Australia. In England, they're linseeds. So this is a ground version. The flavour from a ground flaxseed is really, really good. Like it pops. Like I think from the whole seeds you get great texture. But the flavour's really coming from the ground up version.
Pumpkin seeds and
sunflower seeds, and then sesame. I'm gonna put in half.
So much seeds.
Okay, heavy seeds,
But I think this is one thing that I love about this loaf is we've eaten it a lot in the last 2 weeks, and it holds up really well. You know, usually when I make sourdough at home, it's like 2 days, and it's kind of like pretty.
It dries up.
This does not dry. A week later, and it's still no problem.
It keeps going. It's really good bread. It could last for the whole week, no problem. And like also pan fried or something, or like toasted. It's great. In with salt.
Important salt.
It does a couple of things. Obviously, salt brings flavour, but it also keeps the fermentation at bay. If you forget salt in a dough, like especially if you're doing it in professional setting, the dough goes wild, and there's no coming back from it. It's basically you're like, you cry your eyes out and you make garbage. Okay, so here's the rye flour, and then I'm just going to mix it together. Literally, the beauty of this bread is like you don't need to knead or anything like that. You just bring it together. As soon as it's together, it's done. Like it's so easy.
We're not doing, 10 stretch and folds every 45 minutes and ruin half your day.
You know that whole stretch and fold thing. Like I think if you're machine mixing with a mixer, you just don't need to do it. I was thinking the older you get, the more you realise the less you need to mess with things. You just let them do their thing.
Let's demystify sourdough. It's not that complicated, is it?
Okay, that's done.
Happy days. Well, that dough came together incredibly quickly. That was like literally 2 minutes. And we've got a little tray with all the seeds, just a repeat of what was in the dough.
To coat the outside of the bread.
And a simple loaf tin, which has been greased.
If you eat butter, I would grease it with butter.
Sure.
For sure.
Because
butter fried seeds are incredible. If you don't eat butter, you could use coconut oil or something else, olive oil, but if you do eat butter, go that way. Okay, so basically I'm gonna wet my hands so I don't get stuck to the loaf, and then I'm gonna pick it up from the bowl. I'm gonna imagine it like clay, like it's really easy to use and manipulate. So basically from here, we're just gonna stick it in the seeds, cover it in the seeds, and then into the tin.
That's it.
It's as simple as that. Like, it's very easy.
No crazy shaping.
Yeah, no, nothing. So like, honestly, like, it's such a good entry point for people wanting to start to make bread.
Because I think shaping in white sourdoughs is, if you know how to do it, I'm sure if you do it second nature now, but it can be a bit complicated, can't it?
You're right, it can be a bit complicated and a little bit intimidating. Yeah. In the book, luckily, like, we're in a world of QR codes, and I managed to put QR codes in the book, so you can literally watch what we're doing. That way you can kind of just mimic it time and time again. Yeah. That was super easy.
Super easy. Anyone can do that.
Anyone can do that, you're right.
Made a real simple dough with sourdough. We rolled it in the seeds into a loaf tin. We're gonna let it brew for 2 hours, and then it goes in the oven.
Yeah, it's done.
Happy days.
Super easy.
All right, mate, it's been 2 hours. It's peak under the tower. Whoa, look at that.
Yeah, man, look at that.
It's filled out nicely. What else are we looking for?
So see here, there's some clear cracks. Yep. That's a sign that the rye is ready to roll. Okay. Yeah, generally when the rye is proofed, it will start cracking on the top.
I'm guessing you don't want too much crackage.
No, if there's a lot, you've gone a little bit too far. It will still make a good bread, but it will be kind of flatter on top. Okay.
So we're going in the oven?
Yeah, for sure.
What temperature?
It's about 220. Okay. Yeah, Celsius.
Hot.
Hot, yeah. And then about an hour. It's good if you have a temperature thermometer, because like, you want to read about 93. Internal Celsius, again, you want to read, and then you know you're done. Okay. If not, if you don't have one, no big deal. Like, I would say an hour and 5 minutes is definitely going to be done. Good, yeah.
And we're going to put a tray underneath it with water to keep the humidity up.
Yeah, to some steam in the oven. Another thing to say is, like, every oven is different. Every oven all over the world is a different oven, and it might take a bit of tweaking to get to know your oven. So like, maybe we would bake this and it might be slightly too hot at 220. I mean, you're the boss, man. Turn it down, turn the oven. Like, your first one comes out too dark in a slight area. Just, you're in control of your own space. So like, notice your oven's not baking it exactly how you would like, and make adjustments. That goes back to that intuition. So if you have a fan oven, I would say probably 200 Celsius. Sure. Without a conventional oven with a fan, 220 for sure. Cool. So yeah, if you're going with a fan oven, keep it a little lower, because it's more powerful. Yeah.
Have you been doing a lot of like home baking lately?
Normally it would be a no, because I'm in the bakery all the time. Yeah. But like, over the last year in Mexico, opening up the bakery, it's taken a little while. So I've been doing so much home baking. I've really got used to using my oven at home, and it's been really interesting because I've had so many questions on my book, people baking in their house, and I've really been able to help answer, because I've really started to understand how the flow of my oven works. Actually, my oven at home is rubbish. So
you don't need a good oven, people. Don't let your rubbish oven be an excuse.
And it's been working all right. Yeah, like little tricks, little tweaks here and there to get it right. Yeah.
Cool. All right, well, let's get this in the oven, and then we'll talk about your new bakery, because it sounds super exciting. So we've got the oven tray in there heating up.
Home ovens are designed to let the steam out. So like, with this, it will keep steaming for a while. It lets the bread rise to its full potential.
Right.
Without steam,
it
will
the crust.
Set
right.
straight away.
All right, bro. Bread's in the oven for an hour. It's a great time for me to show you some stuff that I do. So I'm going to make a little sandwich. This is a recipe or a sandwich that I used to make in a cafe. One of my first jobs I ever had. It's in a cafe in New Zealand called Dizenkoff, which is on Ponsonby Road in Auckland, which I'm pretty sure it's still there, actually.
So like, inspired by it?
Yeah. They had this famous bagel. They did these really cool bagels with this Moroccan chicken, which is a very broad term, but I've kind of my interpretation of that now, and a red cabbage slaw. It's very simple, but it's absolutely delicious.
Yeah, okay,
so we've got chicken thighs here, Rasul Hanout, which is a Moroccan spice blend, which you should be able to find in most spice shops. If you can't, you'll definitely be able to find the generic kind of Moroccan spice. Yeah. But heavy clove, turmeric, cumin, coriander seed, stuff like that. Good amount of that into a bowl. Big pinch of salt, and a little bit of oil just to help it all come together.
And it's like a quick marinade?
Yeah, we've got some ready to go, which is ideally an hour in the fridge.
Yeah, okay.
But you could literally grill it like this if you wanted to. It wouldn't really matter. But yeah, that cafe has been there for so long. It's incredible. I think, one thing that New Zealand and Australia does really well is cafe culture.
They were the beginning.
Yeah, it really
actually
was.
It's taken off in England, in Copenhagen now, but like it all came from Australia and New Zealand, yeah.
And then simple mayonnaise. So I'm gonna keep my whites or something else, but I'm just gonna use 2 egg yolks. We're gonna do the immersion blender method, which,
I'm so like old school when it comes to mayonnaise. I'm still whisking up mayonnaise, but you don't need to do that
Nah,
anymore, do you?
Nah, you just shove it in.
And like I think with things like hollandaise and stuff like that too, I think you can do the same thing.
Yeah,
but like I haven't quite like got into the the modern techniques for that.
But watch this.
I'm gonna learn.
We're gonna learn, or I'm gonna split it on camera, and I can't can't cover up my mistakes because you're here. But that's okay. Pinch of salt. Dump all your oil in straight away. You can use avocado oil.
It blows my mind.
I know, it goes against everything we were taught, doesn't it?
Yeah, for sure. Like it used to be like whisking the tiny bit. Yeah, mad.
Bit of seeded mustard.
So cool.
I like quite a lot of mustard. Mustard in general is probably one of my favourite condiments. And just a bit of water. If it gets too thick, it'll also split.
Yeah, okay.
So, you need something to thin it out. So you can use lemon juice, but for me, it starts to get a bit acidic and kind of take over everything. There should be enough acid in the mustard, especially if you're using a good quality mustard. So here's the trick. Immersion blender, straight to the bottom, let it settle. And then you're effectively making it in reverse, right? So you can see it's working at the bottom, and as you slowly bring it up, you're slowly bringing the oil in. Mayonnaise.
That's insane. Yeah, so cool.
Super easy. So that's that done. We're gonna slice our cabbage now, and then we'll just season our cabbage with some vinegar. So another, thing that I think restaurants like a lot of the guys that you work with in Copenhagen have really opened a lot of people's eyes to is, vinegars and the types of vinegars that you can use. And
I mean, also acid. Like you want acid, yeah.
Do you use much vinegar in baking?
Mainly if I'm making something sweet, a pastry of some sort, for sure. And it's always like, I always use salt too. Like in my jams, in anything like that, salt, sweet, acid.
Yeah. And this cabbage, I like to do it really fine. So you probably should use the guard on the mandolin, and someone's going to call me out in the comments for not doing it, but I never have. So, are you a mandolin guard type of person?
I'm not a mandolin guard type of person, but I have lost a few thumbs in doing that. Yeah.
So tell us about your new bakery, mate. The Green Rhino.
Oh, okay. Green Rhino was named by my son.
Amazing.
His name is Jude. He's always been obsessed with rhinos and the colour green. So like I had all these names flowing around. One of them was UFO. One of them was 77. They're all random. They had no meaning. Jude, my son, was like, Dad, they suck. And he was like, call it Green Rhino. Basically, this is a green rhino he drew when he was 6.
Amazing.
He's now 12, so he's still obsessed with green rhino. So like I instantly said yes, and he's so proud. Yeah. He keeps drawing me rhinos. I keep saying, well, can I use that on a t-shirt? He's like, yeah, if you pay me 50%.
50% of what?
50%, I'm like, nah. So yeah, Green Rhino. It's going to open very soon, actually. Probably in May this year.
What was the reason for for opening a bakery in Mexico City?
It's my kids were living in Denmark, and now they live in America. Like my first wife moved back to America, and so it was to be close to them. And so from Mexico City, I fly up and see them every month. And you know what? When I moved to Copenhagen was on fire. Like it was incredible. I feel like Mexico City right now is on fire. Like there is stuff happening everywhere. Young chefs opening cool things everywhere. It feels really exciting time to be there.
Awesome. We'll have to come check it out.
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to host you in Mexico. Yeah, so Mexican food is very exciting for me. Also like the produce, the tropical fruits. There's so many amazing corns. So like I'm really excited to dive into Mexican culture, make Mexican baked goods.
Amazing. So we've just sliced this cabbage super fine. And then to that, we're gonna add not a decent amount, maybe kind of half a teaspoon of salt. And we're gonna add some vinegar, and then I'm gonna kind of massage that through. It'll let off a bit of liquid as well, which is a good thing. So that way when we add our mayonnaise, we've got the mayonnaise to the consistency we want. So we don't want it to, and I mean,
You
look
don't
at
want to add excess water.
No, look at the colour change already,
Yeah, it's
right?
mad.
It's insane. I was talking to Henrietta, your wife, last night. Yeah, we had some delicious tea from her last night and she was telling me that it's from New Zealand. The tea was grown in New Zealand.
Yeah, actually, it's one of my favourite teas in the world.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, it's like, and I live a life of luxury. I'm with the tea lady. I get to try so many different teas. And this New Zealand tea is incredible. We're about to go and visit, and I'm so excited to go and see the tea farm and see the people making my favourite tea. Yeah, it's so exciting.
How lucky are we to see this stuff?
Yeah, I feel so privileged to be able to go and visit, you know, like I visit my miller or I visit the place. I visit where my ingredients come from. So in Mexico, I'm using Mexican chocolate. We're going to go and visit the cacao farm and that's the way forward.
It is, it is. And I think people love that. They love the stories.
Yeah.
They want to know where their food comes from.
For sure, yeah. And to be able to just explain, like, this chocolate's expensive, but this is why. Yeah,
it's because, and it's also because the people that are picking it are getting a fair wage.
Yeah, of course,
So I know I said I was going to drain that off, but it's kind of fine, to be honest. But we've got our lovely purple.
The colour's just gone to completely purple.
And I'm kind of nervous.
Mad.
I wore a white t-shirt today. I only wear black t-shirts, and I wore a white t-shirt today because it's the international uniform of a baker. So I think today was the only day. I think everyone's gonna be surprised that I'm wearing a white t-shirt. But so the mayonnaise I made, you can see, is quite thin, and that was deliberate. We don't want a super thick mayonnaise because I'm not a huge fan of coleslaws that are like laden with mayonnaise.
Yeah.
I think it kind of can overpower stuff, but we do want it. And this is going to turn like a really like violety purple color. We want to make sure that we're getting a good amount of coverage. And then the only other thing I'm going to add here is a decent amount of toasted sesame seeds, like quite a lot, all those actually. And then we'll check for seasoning. We'll grill our chicken that we've marinated. We'll make some Danish style open sandwiches. All right, mate, our chicken is marinated.
Looks great.
Yeah, taking on a lot of color, which is good.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to pan fry this in some olive oil, like a nice heavy cast iron pan or carbon steel pan. But you could ideally, or not ideally, do it in a char grill, on a gas barbecue, get a bit of more flavour on it. But you know, life's not ideal. We don't always have these tools at our disposal, do we? But make sure you get a decent bit of heat into that, and then we'll get our chicken down, and we'll probably cook it. So there's two sides to a boned chicken thigh. You got this side, which is where the skin would go on, and then this side where the bone would go on. We're going to cook it on what was the side that had the skin on most of the way, almost sort of 80% of the way, and that way we're going to build up really good colour on the outside. Quite different to when I cook steaks, which I'll flip quite often. And just get enough pieces that it covers the bottom. I'm going to have an extra piece here, which is kind of annoying, but I'm not going to squish them in.
I mean, I would always be tempted to squeeze that last one in, but you're right, like it's just not the way. Okay, it's good. It's done.
Oh, look at that.
Okay.
Looks good, doesn't it?
Lovely. It looks beautiful. Nice colour. Oven was spot on. Yeah, so that was 200 degrees with a fan.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so let's put it out of the tin.
You got baker's hands.
There you go.
Oh, look at the colour on that.
Yeah, it's lovely. And like these seeds are going to be so delicious. Yeah.
Amazing. So now the temptation for me to cut into this right now, hot bread, is hard to pull back on.
It's hard.
It's hard. How long realistically before we should?
So rye bread really, because it needs to set, should be made a day in advance.
Really?
Yeah. So normally rye bread you make this day for tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah. So the dream scenario is we would wait. Now, like in a desperate situation, you might be able to get an edge with a lot of butter. That would be great. But yeah, ideally you're going to let your rye bread sit overnight.
All right, well, lucky through the powers of YouTube, we have one that we already made. Thank you to Sarah for making
Check
that for
that
us.
out.
And thank you to you, your recipes clearly work, because that looks exactly the same. So we're going to make a little sani, as we call them in Australia. Well, not really. This is kind of a Danish-inspired one, because we were talking about cutting this type of bread, and you don't want it thick, do you, right?
No, not too thick, because it's quite packed full, you know? It's got everything you want in there, like lots of seeds. I think if it's too thick, it would be too much.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Beautiful fermentation there. Yeah, it's really nice.
So how thick do you reckon, mate? Like that thick?
I think that's perfect. Yeah.
And then what do we call these in
Oh man, you're gonna get me killed by every Danish person. It would be called a small brod.
A small brod.
Yeah, but like, you remember I said the brod, that last bit is where your tongue would come out, but honestly, I can't, man. I can't do it.
Just gonna slice some of this chicken up. It's not hot, it's still a bit warm, but you could have it cold, it wouldn't really matter. Now this bread, I'm assuming, would toast up lovely.
Yeah, it'd be lovely on a pan, yeah.
Just a bit of oil or butter.
Could have used the chicken pan.
Oof.
Yeah.
Oh, that would have been good. What's your favourite thing
Juicy, no?
to eat on this bread, mate?
Oh, you know, I go all different ways. Like, I go sweet, savoury, just plain cheese, Marmite. I'm a fan of Marmite, I'm sorry to say.
No, I'm a Kiwi. I'm also a fan of Marmite.
Okay, so Marmite, smoked salmon.
All right. Well,
Looks so good.
cheers, brother.
Cheers.
Thank you for sharing all your tricks.
Thanks.
For me, it's the flavors of all the seeds, and you can taste them. You can taste the sesame seeds, you can taste all the malt and the barley, and it works really well with the slaw.
so good,
It's so good. Yeah.
And you were saying like it was on a bagel before, but this works so well, doesn't it?
Can't stop eating.
It's super good. Yeah.
Well, Richard, brother, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been, enlightening for me to learn from literally one of the best bakers in the world. And then you're very humble, so you're probably, blushing when I say that, but it's true. Guys, let us know in the comments if you've ever eaten at Hart Bakeries or Copenhagen, or if you're about to go and eat at the Green Rhino, or if you managed to get yourself on some of Richard's bread in Melbourne in the last couple of weeks. But bro, thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me.
been
I've had the
amazing.
best time. Yeah, it's been amazing.
And I can't wait to come and maybe let us know in the comments as well if I should go to Mexico City and do a little food tour with Richard, because that sounds like it'd be a bit of fun.
For sure. Yeah.
Awesome. Guys, like this video. If you took anything from it, go follow Richard. His recipe will also be down below. He's very kindly going to give us that recipe. Follow him over on Instagram and all that stuff. And we'll see you next week for another recipe. I probably won't have Richard here next week, but there'll be something delicious.